Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 4 of our new series, Legacy of Loremasters, for Bandwidth and Banter, which is technically episode 87.
Yep.
So, man, I'm super excited. This has been such a fun series, Druid, right? Because we've been able to talk to so many folks and get to know, their DM style and how they do things,
Yep.
and just getting different perspectives on TTRPGs in general, especially
Yes.
D&D. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And we had Dan Cletus on last time.
Mm-hmm.
Just a hilarious human being. Just fantastic. I would love to game with him sometime, for sure.
Oh yeah.
And just on that note, another person I could see, I don't think it'll ever happen, but I would love to be able to game with the person that we're having on tonight, with him as a DM, because he is just really rich into lore and creativity. And I love listening to him as he discusses and talks about lore. Wow, perfect timing on the cough. It's mostly going away, but I think it's time for us to take it away. Because we're having on bytesizemike, who we've had on B&B before. Can't wait. Let's do it now. Here he is. Hi guys.
Hi.
Let's go. So excited.
Everyone, if you remember, we've had bytesizemike on regular Bandwidth and Banter before, and it was such a treat. Please reintroduce yourself and tell us something that stands out about you in regards to TTRPGs or D&D.
So I'm bytesizemike. Been a streamer and D&D player for a long time. Something that really stands out, at least for me, when it comes to TTRPGs, is I have never run a pre-made module. I have only ever homebrewed every world and every campaign that I have DM'd a campaign for.
Amazing. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's just something special about homebrews. Yeah,
there is. Once I did it, I could never go back. Once I homebrewed my first stuff, I could never pick up a pre-made module.
Yeah, to be fair, in the old days, the quality of the modules was a lot better than nowadays. Some really good old school ones like the Dark Sun campaign setting, Grey Hawk, and heck, the City of Lankmar is another good one. Just really cool, interesting modules, or even individual modules like White Plume Mountain is a classic. But it can be fun to run modules, but I'm with you. Like, it's like when I do campaigns, 100% homebrew. I just couldn't do it any other way anymore.
Yep, exactly.
So, starting off today, though, we get to hear bytesizemike's D&D origin story. Please tell us how you began down this journey of TTRPG goodness.
So it started when I was in college. Gosh, it'd have to be, I think, 11 or 12 years ago at this point. I don't know. I don't remember the exact reason, but I had picked up the DM's handbook, the player's handbook, and the monster manual for D&D 3.5 edition.
Nice.
And I got my mentor that kind of mentored me through like high school and part of college, and a couple of friends from high school together. And we sat on my kitchen floor, and I had hooked a projector up to a this like wooden post with a beam sticking out of it that the projector hung from, and I projected a map onto the floor and put a piece of plexiglass on the floor so I could draw on the map. And we just sat on my kitchen floor and played D&D for 3 or 4 hours. That was my very first time, and since then I just can't get enough of D&D.
Wow. So you don't
Amazing.
remember what inspired you to pick up the first books?
No, I can't remember what prompted me to grab the books. I don't remember if I had seen something, or I do remember one of my first memories of like seeing other people do D&D was Acquisitions Incorporated. I had watched one of their like real long episodes on YouTube from like one of their early episodes. And it could have been that.
Mm,
But if it wasn't that, I could not tell you. I remember I was like, I should pick up these books and start playing.
gotcha. So you did already know about Dungeons and Dragons. It was
Yes, I
just
knew a little bit.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting.
That's so cool.
Sometimes all it takes is a little spark, right?
Yep, and that's all it took, and I've been homebrewing stuff ever since.
Right on.
That's so cool. I love that. Can I
Mm,
share a quick story? I've talked about this before.
mhm.
So when Fate and I first started dating, like we were still in like we're awkward holding hands stage, right? And I never played D&D. Like I heard about D&D and like he would sit there and he would just talk about his Palladium game that he played. And he would tell me all these stories and like he talked to me about Jace and like everything. And then him and I would spend hours walking around just creating characters and concepts and worlds and everything. So like literally like the foundation of our relationship was us talking about world building for like hours and hours and hours for months and months and months. And it was very cute.
Hmm.
And I love it so much. So I just wanted to share that.
No, that's a great
It's
story.
been a while since I've shared it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, since we're in the sharing phase, and that is what this particular interview is about, is more of a conversation type thing. I'm not going to talk about my D&D origin story because I've told that before, but I will, since she talked about the foundation of her kind of relationship with her husband has been wrapped in D&D. The same thing for me. Like I literally met Star Kitty playing Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, I was the DM of a group, and she had friends that was in my group, and they asked me if we wanted to invite her, and I said sure, and yeah.
So cute. I love it.
It was funny. It was a lot of fun. And that campaign was a homebrew. Technically speaking, it was my own kind of what do you call it? Adaptation or version of a pre-existing one, which was the Dark Sun universe. I basically kind of modeled my concept for the world off of it, so that they get that kind of flavor and feel, but it was still my own kind of world, and it loved it. So it was good stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm
Go ahead.
I'm really excited to broach this topic.
Mhm.
When it comes to crafting your story from scratch, what is your process? What do you start with? Like how do you go about building and crafting a homebrew world?
So for my homebrew world, so for anyone that doesn't know, I'm autistic and have ADHD. So I'm very OCD and picky and like a perfectionist. So when
Mhm.
I do my worlds, it is all or nothing.
Mhm.
So the best example I can give is the current homebrew world that we're in, because it's the one I've used for the past 3 or 4 campaigns I've run. And what I did is I started off with I made the entire world, which is split up into 5 countries, and then the country that everything was going to start in, I mapped out every single city. Well, I mapped out every single city for all of the countries, and then for that specific city, I mapped out, or that specific country, I mapped out every single city with all of the politics, government, trade, arts, commerce, guards, religion, um, shops that would exist, like how many shops would exist in the town of this size. If there were, like more than 3 or 4 of a specific type, then I just gave, like 2 or 3 examples of like what you could find out of the like 50 that there may be of
Mhm.
like, general stores or something like that. But I would have at least one example of almost every single story you could find in there. I had a demographic table of like this many people in this town are farmers, this many people are unemployed, this many people work in the church. I went very like top level all the way down to like the most minuscule details.
You must not sleep much, or not then anyway.
When I am prepping for D&D, I typically will not. When I've done like my crafts, my prop crafting for my players, I have stayed up all night at least once per craft project, if not a couple of times per craft project.
Amazing.
I will sacrifice so much sleep for D&D.
Wow.
I love that. The thing is the hyperfixation when it happens. It's all consuming.
It is.
I get it. That ADHD hyperfixation, man, it is
So when you to for me to kind of get the picture, then you like to start, like you said, from top down. You like to create the details of the world first, and then kind of expand upon that and add more lore and all that stuff.
Yep. And then as things come up like in sessions, if they're like, oh, we want to, like go talk to a person that I hadn't like planned for them to talk to. Like in my most recent one, my most recent session, they wanted to go explore a house that supposedly belonged to the BBEG. And I didn't want them to just like walk up to the house and like barge inside. So I had them meet a ghost hunter, like a paranormal investigator that was outside the house skulking about, and like told them like, oh, this house is haunted, like don't go in there. Also buy my book. I've got a book that I'm publishing. You should go buy it. So like as things come up in sessions, I'll just like throw these like random little bits in there and then add it to my like campaign, like my world notes and stuff later.
Yep. I gotcha. Same here. Like there are times not just mid campaign, but literally mid session where I'll think of an idea and like add that in there or plan it for the future, or just to embellish or flesh out, make it fresh. And
and one thing I found that I've really utilized, some people may not agree with me on this, but I have found that it's been like so helpful for like on the fly things in my sessions. In that same session where I introduced the ghost hunter, the town that they had went to is a very like odd, cryptic, like weird town. And I had just like offhandedly, when they were talking to like one of the people in charge, they were like, oh yeah, make sure you follow the town rules. And I was just like, I thought they would just be like, okay, we'll be good and whatnot. And they were like, well, what are the town rules? And so one thing that I've come to use, because I do all of my stuff digital. So I have my laptop up with like our maps projected to a TV and stuff, and I'll have an extra window on my laptop that is ChatGPT, and I'll just real quick go in there. I have a conversation with conversation tab where I have like done a lot of my world building. Like I've told it all the stuff about my world and like the cities and that stuff, so it can use that stuff to give me better responses for what I ask it. And I was just like, here's the situation. They entered this town. There's some really odd town rules. Give me a list of 10 random town rules that are odd that I can tell my players. And it spat out just 10 random rules to tell my players.
Honestly,
wow.
Listen, if there is a way to utilize ChatGPT for good, I think that is the perfect way to utilize ChatGPT for good. I'm just saying. If anybody has a problem with that, you can write me a letter that I will promptly ignore. Okay? Just saying.
Interesting. That's definitely a unique and creative use of AI tools. And I honestly, I wouldn't have thought of it. Well done.
Yeah. I had the idea, and I've used it for so many things, like the ghost, the paranormal investigator. I had the idea for like, this is who I want it to be, and I was just like, I need a paranormal investigator that my players are going to meet outside this house, and it was just like, here's everything. His name is Hector P. Haunt.
Wow.
Beautiful.
It's like it does a really good job of giving me exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, because especially if you use the same chat thing, it recognizes and will learn as you are chatting in that same little chat. It's so cool, and that's a fantastic way to utilize like AI tools, I think. Like you just gave me a frightening vision of the future where you and I
Bite Size Mike, don't exist anymore. ChatGPT will be the DM. We won't need DMs anymore.
Listen, we all know that is not going to happen.
I'm
Because
kidding.
everybody's
I'm
going to
teasing.
choose. I would not want a ChatGPT.
No, you need
Well,
that
no.
human piece of a DM.
Here's the thing. I mean, I agree with you 100% that, the interaction and everything. But just remember this. Do you guys know how fast technology evolves? And right now, ChatGPT is the worst that it'll ever be. It's only going to get better. So there's going to come a point where it really could be a DM and pass the Turing test. Basically, you could pass ChatGPT off as an actual human, and the players wouldn't even know. It will happen. It's inevitable. So
we're not going to think about that right now because we're just going to move on to the next DM style. Okay,
this is actually an interesting segue to back up a little bit about his D&D origin story, because I was curious about one thing we didn't talk about, and that was, have you done any other TTRPGs besides Dungeons and Dragons?
I have not. I've picked up. I went to I don't remember what it was called. It was like the TTRPG day where you can go to like local game stores and they've got like chess sessions running, and some of them had like free materials you could pick up. And I got a couple free materials, like source books for a couple of TTRPGs, but at the time I didn't have anybody to run them with. And then once I got back to like having a group to play with, everyone was just like, let's play D&D. So I haven't really touched anything other than 3.5 and 5th edition. That's really the only two I've done, and that's pretty much what I've stuck with.
Yeah.
Which edition is your current campaign?
5th edition.
Right on. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm super fortunate to have met Druid and Fate, and of course added Banana Tom to our roster.
Not that guy.
Don't be mean, Druid. She can't help herself.
I can't.
But
I can't. It's physically impossible.
I'm also fortunate that Star Kitty and I get to play with some local friends of ours. Although we don't do it in person anymore, we still do it over like Discord, just because the convenience of it. But the pandemic got us used to it, so
Yeah.
We've been playing with them for like 9 years, and we still play on Sundays 3.5. So for the stream, I do 5th ed, and then for Sundays deal, we do 3.5. And I'm also lucky because one of our players is DMing right now, so I actually am getting to play. I'm not the forever DM right now.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
I want to go back to 3.5 at some point. I just know I've got to get my group like used to playing again, because 3.5, in my opinion, is much more brutal than 5th edition.
Yeah.
It's a lot less forgiving.
Yeah.
And I'm also fortunate. One of my players, they're actually our neighbor. She has also been pretty much a forever DM. So at some point, her and I can switch off, and she can run one, and I can play. And I think it'll be really cool to finally. I've only played in one campaign for about 3 sessions before I quit the group, because there was one guy that was just super toxic. He chose to play a chaotic evil character in a group of, the worst we had was chaotic neutral, and he was very like playing into chaotic evil like real bad. And so I got into like an argument with him over something he had done in the game, and I was just like, that I'm not playing anymore with this guy.
Yeah.
I understand. I do. Yeah.
I feel like those things need to be established.
Yeah.
Oh,
wow. We just got raided.
We just got raided.
Real quick, since we're doing our interview, I just want to say thank you to the raiders. We appreciate you. We're in our Legacy Loremasters interview with Bytesizemike, talking about his DM style and his D&D origin story. So yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks for bringing your folks over, Malmay. Super sweet. Thank you.
Before we continue, that last bit that I just told about that one time that I played, I actually forgot. I have done another TTRPG, because that one campaign I played in was Pathfinder.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's the other one I've done. I totally slipped my mind, because it's the one time I've ever played. So it's kind of just like in the back of my mind, just like sitting there like, maybe one day I'll get to play again. So it totally slipped my mind. I have done Pathfinder before.
I've done Pathfinder before too, in like random one-off sessions with Wookiees and Cookies as the DM, and but it was like 20 people shouting at each other. Half of them were drinking, the other half of us were just like talking shit to each other, like on the other end of the table. Like it was so chaotic and fun, but it like there was no story. It was just like, be free with your character sheets and hope that you survive. And we're just like, cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
and Pathfinder is really a fork of 3.5 anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking it. I think it's an incredible product, right? I think what they did at the time and still do is awesome. Although I guess I've heard that they're really have made a lot of interesting changes to it. I haven't played it in, I've only touched it, but
yeah, I've heard they made a lot of interesting changes as well. And the one thing I really liked about it, I really wanted to play it for one reason and one reason only, which was because of a class called the Mesmerist. That was the one reason I wanted to play it. It was like I was a magic user, more like battle mage almost, but a little bit more magic than battle. But his whole thing was like deception and charisma and using magic to deceive people, and that was my whole thing. That's the one reason I really wanted to play that.
Right on. Well, now moving on to our next question here. Again, diving deep into your DM style. Please tell us your method for designing interesting NPCs.
So, gosh, that's a hard one because a lot of them, they honestly just like come to me just like randomly. Like a lot of my most interesting NPCs I have thought of just on the spot. I know I talked about my most interesting NPC on the first time I was on with y'all with Bandwidth and Banter. My NPC Bob.
Right.
That was my most interesting one that I've made, and he just kind of came to me one day. Like my players will go out to do something. They'll go to like an inn or a tavern and be walking around town. They'll be like, I want to go here, and sometimes I'll just get this this thought in my head of like, well, I should make the character like this, and it just is kind of like a snowball effect of like, I have that first initial thought, and then it just rolls and grows, and I'm just like, this just turned into like a fully fleshed out, interesting NPC. Like with Bob, I just had the idea of like, oh, he's just an old guy that you meet out in the woods, and I was like, well, he's an old guy out in the woods. He should ramble a lot and get lost on his stories. It would also be cool if he was wildly older than he should be as a human, and it just kind of kept growing and growing from there. And same thing with the paranormal investigator. I just had the thought of like, oh, they shouldn't just be able to barge into an empty home. There's got to be someone out there they meet. And I was like, oh, what about a haunted house and a ghost investigator? And oh, well, if he's a ghost investigator, he's obviously trying to make money, so he should have a book, and he should try to be pushing his book on them. And it just kind of, that first initial thought comes. I don't try to like plan anything out with the character at that moment. I just let whatever happens happen.
Gotcha. We'll have to get to that in a bit.
I saved it. Don't worry.
So I have a question for you in regards to that. So I get where you're coming from, because I too have made up some of the best NPCs on the fly. But like for any of your like kind of main quest lines, do you sometimes create an NPC specifically for like to get the party to the BBEG or something to that effect? Or
most of what I've done so far is I actually introduced my players to the BBEG very early on. So like in our current one, my players already know this, so it's fine. The current BBEG is the inn owner in town. And they only found out because they were going to investigate like a poltergeist situation at the inn, and it turns out that she had murdered her husband and his ghost was haunting the inn, and then they ended up finding her secret lair under the inn. And so like with that, I typically what I have done so far is I introduced the BBG early on, and it's typically some sort of creature or monster like a lich or
Mm-hmm.
a hag or something like that that can be somewhat like human like.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So that way I can introduce them to the BBG early on, and then the BBG will just vanish and show back up at random times. Where and it'll always have like its escape route. They can never actually do anything about it at the time. So I flesh out kind of like the creature that I want them to end up fighting. I always plan like way far out of like this is what I want them to end up fighting, and then I kind of trickle down from there of like, okay, how would this creature act, or this like monster or whatever, how would they act? Yeah, what would their minions be like? Where would their minions be at? How would all of these things and all these events that could come from the monster, how could those impact the players in certain towns and certain areas? I use kind of more like clues and events and scenarios to kind of lead my players closer and closer to the bad guy.
Gotcha.
Ooh. Oh, so good. I love D&D.
Hmm.
I love D&D. Quick, just random side.
Mm-hmm.
What is it for you two, for my two beautiful DMs here?
Uh-huh.
What is the one thing that you can say that you love most about crafting these kinds, like crafting a story? Like, what is like something that just, when you think about sitting down and crafting a story for a group of players, what is the thing that makes your heart just...
For
I'm gonna
me,
let
it would
Mike answer that one first.
definitely
Yeah, go ahead.
it would definitely be for me. It's kind of twofold for me. There's two main driving forces for me. One is I've always had a dream of writing a book, but I've never been able to sit down and like write a book. So I use D&D as my creative outlet instead of writing a book. So that's where all of my like creative energy when it comes to that kind of stuff goes. And then
Mm-hmm.
secondly, um, is I love seeing the joy on my players' faces during the session and after the session. And like when something cool happens or they have like a super cool role play moment where they're like deep in the role play and things like that. That's what I really love about crafting these stories is knowing that like the joy I'm going to see in the role play and the like immersion that I'm going to see from my players.
Mm-hmm.
Like I use both inspiration points and plot points for my players. And I've got little like bottle caps for my inspiration points that I've put like stickers on, and so like I hand those out when they get inspiration, and it goes with like their dice and whatnot. And I've handed out so many of those with my current group. It's insane. Like this group works so well together,
Hmm.
and I just love seeing that just like that immersion into my story that I crafted.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you there. Definitely one of my favorite things is to have the players lose themselves in what you're crafting, for sure. Agreed. For me, the thing that like my favorite thing, I think Drew probably already knows this. I like crafting mind-blowing plot twists. I like seeing the utter shock and disbelief on my player's face when I craft something unique and different that they just didn't see coming. And yeah, it's I don't know, it gets me excited. And so I typically, I mean, that's kind of my DM style for the campaign story from scratch. Is I typically will think of some plot twists, kind of. I try and actually I start backwards. I usually try and think of the end of the campaign and what sort of plot twist there will be around the end or in the middle, and kind of craft it from there, inside out, as it were.
Yeah,
But
I can get behind that.
yeah,
That's good.
I gotta admit though, I mean, I love playing the fact that you have crafted worlds with so much detail. That kind of, it's a different kind of experience to play in that. kind of environment, and as a player, I love DMs who do that. So props to you.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. And I've even like the sessions I have run in this world, anything that happens in that world, I carry over to the next campaign. So like my last group is the group that made Bob mayor of the town, and I carried that over to my current campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So Bob is still mayor in my current campaign.
Oh,
Yep.
that's fantastic.
Yep.
That
It sort of have something in common right now in their campaign, right? I made one of Star Kitty's favorite characters from the past, a powerful high-level NPC in their
in our
current world.
current.
Yeah.
I love that.
Ooh, that's a great question you got, Druid.
I know. How do you go about crafting encounters? So do you start with monsters, setting? Like, what is it about? Like, how do you go about crafting really entertaining encounters?
So it all depends on the session, because for some of my sessions, um, I plan all my sessions out ahead of time, and obviously I'll have like the random encounters, like you're on like a wagon ride to the next town, and like I'll just like roll on a table or something for that. But
Mhm.
any encounters, I plan all the encounters out ahead of time, and I will typically do a mix of combat and non-combat encounters. So I'll have like if I know there's an area where they should fight monsters, or if it's an area where I don't think they should fight monsters and I want to surprise them, then I put some sort of combat encounter. Um, and then there's a lot of times where I will do, honestly, quite a few non-combat encounters. I'll have rooms full of riddles, puzzles, all kinds of stuff like that. And anytime I do a non-combat encounter, I will pretty much always have a prop for it. A
Oh.
scroll with a riddle on it. And I'll wrinkle them up, tear them, char them, wrap them in ribbon, fold them up. I will do all of that work. And That's how I'll do my non-combat encounters, and I'll typically it's a mix of like, oh, you have a couple rooms with riddles, and then, oh, there's a fight, and then another riddle, and then a couple more fights. And when I do the fights, I typically will make it, if they're heavily following the trail of the bad guy, then I'll typically make it like some of the bad guy's minions.
Mhm.
If they're off doing like, oh, goblins are infesting a town, then I'll do something, like that. Or if they're like out camping at night, and I'll do like an encounter of creatures that would be in that area. And
Yeah.
sometimes I'll just throw in one of my last encounters I did with creature, the Riffler. It was just a fun encounter that I was like, I want to do something interesting, so let's throw this random fey creature out there and see what they do.
Hmm.
So that's kind of how I go about my encounters. I plan them out very well, and I don't railroad my players, but I do make sure that they don't miss anything important.
Mm.
Hmm.
Because I never want them to miss something super important, and I'll
Right.
always
Yeah.
make sure, even if I have to like change what room it's in or something like that, I always make sure they find whatever they're looking for.
Hmm.
Unless they just like completely go off the rails of what I
Right.
planned. But yeah, that's typically how I'll do all my session encounters.
I love that.
Nice. Very, very. From just so far what we've been talking about, listening to you, I feel like you're very efficient and organized DM, and that can definitely make for very tight, enjoyable encounters and experiences at the table.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Do you have an encounter besides the ruffler that you are um exceptionally proud of, whether it's this campaign or last campaign?
I actually do. It's less so an encounter. It was really a whole session, full of
Okay.
encounters. It was actually one that I'd asked your opinion on, Druid. I had uh, I had the idea that to introduce the new player to our group, because he joined partway into our session or into our campaign. He was going to be in the inn with the other players, and they were all going to bed around the same time. They all had the same dream together.
Mhm.
They got transported to like a dream realm. They're still not sure who sent them there. They're still arguing over that. So they all got sent there, and they had to go through this whole like forgotten like ruins. There were puzzles and traps and all this stuff. And they had like this disembodied voice telling them to find the architect of the dreamscape. And they're all arguing over who the architect is, who put them there. And then at the end, they see the BBG for the campaign that they know exists, and
Mhm.
they were basically talking smack to the BBG, and the BBG was just very plainly said back, "Well, I wish you were all dead," and then they all woke up.
Ooh.
Wow.
Ooh. I'd
Spooky.
wake up and be like,
Nice.
uh-oh.
Very cool.
Words have
That was my favorite
consequences.
one. That was my favorite one I've done.
That's so good. I remember you messaging me that, and I'm like,
Oh yeah.
fuck it.
Before we move
So
on to
good.
this next and last primary topic question, I'm curious if you said that you do everything digitally. Does that mean you don't have a physical copy of your map you could show us?
I actually might. Grace might have one in her journal that I made her.
Which also, if you want to show that off too, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the handmade journal that I made for my wife. I hand dyed or stained all of the paper, hand bound all of the leaflets together, put the ribbons in it, bound the leather on the hard cover, put the like ridges on the back with rope. Did all of that for her. And the map for our current session is, I don't know how well it'll show up, but that is the current map for our session. They are starting over here in this orange country.
Very nice.
That is
Very
so
cool.
beautiful. I love how you even have the depth of the water too.
Yeah, I don't remember what software I made this with, but I used a software to make it. And it was super easy to make. And it's just the map I've used ever since. I lost my copy of it. I don't know what happened to it. But I had a like poster sized version of the country they were in that I would hang up during our session so they could see like the whole country. It was probably like 3 feet tall. So they could see like the entire area they were, and they could see, like where mountains were, where forests were, where towns were. It was super cool. I need to get another copy of it.
That's so cool.
Hmm.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
All right. So thanks for sharing that. I knew that would be the perfect opportunity to share
I
that
love it.
prop.
We're
I
just
didn't
like,
know that the
any
map would
prop.
be in that, but I figured it would at least spark us to show off that book. So that was perfect timing.
Yeah. Which, if y'all want to see my other props at any point, I have more.
Yeah, absolutely. Show us the other ones.
So, these are 2 other things I have made for my upcoming session.
Mhm.
I had the idea. I saw it on TikTok. I saw a guy do it, and I was like, I've got to do this for my players. So this is a thief's journal that our rogue is going to find in our next session, where I have taken paper and bound it with duct tape. And I've got just like random stories, notes that have been ripped up, random like names of places. I have a whole contact page with like people, their nicknames, where they're found, their occupation, um, notes about like I think I have a whole cipher in here at some point. Yeah, I've got like a whole cipher in here that they can use for messages. And at the end, it's actually got like the story, like a like diary entries from this guy who it's like his last few entries. He met a girl. He's getting out of the game of being a thief. And if you find this, don't come looking for him. Um, and then I made a similar book for our bard, which is similarly bound. But because he's a bard, it's bound with gold duct tape, and it's a lot of like poems, songs. I found a lot of like generators to make just like song sheets. So I've got like music sheets in here,
Wow.
like cryptic notes hidden in here, spell different like spell shapes, all kinds of stuff. And then this one ends with his diary entries of his mom is sick and he ends up not going on with life because he can't deal with the loss of his mom.
Oh, that's so cool. So something that I love that you have all of these like really cool props and stuff, and that's definitely like the benefit of sitting at a table and playing, which is
Mhm.
super cool. Fate was actually talking to me just the other day, like that's something that I've missed out on, especially with like Isles in the Mist, because I've had a couple of like where we attempted to start campaigns, but there's baby DMs, baby players, and like different expectations. There was like the Mercer effect happening, with like certain players and like certain, you know what I mean. So like it just made it really difficult to get into it and to play and to stick with it. And then my first full campaign ever was Isles in the Mist with Stormy, right? It's the inception of all of this, right? And Fate actually is a big props guy, and I was trying to talk him into actually running like this is when we were still in California, and this is before Stormy. I was trying to talk him into playing and stuff, and he actually started gathering like little trinkets and things to use as actual props. And because he's just like, I want tangible things to put my little grubby hands on, and I'm just like, so cool. So I love that. I love the props. The props are very fun.
And I even have a box that holds all of my former riddles and papers and puzzles, and all of that is in here so I can reference everything that I have done. One, to make sure I don't repeat anything, and two, so if I need to repeat something, then I can.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's so cool. I love it so much.
I do
So
too.
it's my thing.
Props.
All right.
One day.
So this last question is kind of the hardest one. And even to this day, I've been doing this for almost 40 years, I think. Is that right? No, over 40 years. um, wow.
What are numbers even?
Yeah.
What are numbers even?
But even to this day, I still sometimes, issues with this. And I kind of know, I kind of have a feeling I know what you're going to say, but I'm just curious. How do you handle pacing? What's your method for handling pacing in your encounters, your sessions, your individual sessions, in the campaign in general?
So that's honestly, I mean, it is a hard question for sure. I don't honestly pay attention to pacing all that much. I kind of, I think the main pacing I pay attention to is I know what level I want them to meet the BBEG at. Because I plan out the BBG well in advance, and I know I've already planned out the entire BBG encounter. So I know exactly like what level they need to be at for that exact encounter. So I'm kind of leading them up to that point, and I try to balance each session where it's not too combat heavy, it's not too role play heavy. It's a good mix of both. I don't rush them through anything. I fully explain everything they're doing, everything they see, let them explore around as much as they want to. And I kind of have like a general timeline in my head of when I feel like they should meet the BBG. Like I know what level they need to be at, and I kind of just have a general time frame in my head of like, this amount of time has passed by with us playing like consistent sessions and stuff before they will be at that level to meet the BBG. And I kind of it's honestly more like a little bit more random. It's definitely not XP based at all for like how they level up or anything like that. It's milestone for sure. And I kind of just like at certain points will be like, okay, it's time for y'all to level up, so that they can start doing more things to get closer to the BBEG. I can start throwing more stuff at them. Just kind of every so often I'll be like, okay, it's time to move up now. so that eventually once we hit that time frame in my head, they'll be able to find the BBEG and encounter them.
Have you ever run into? I mean, I'm sure you have probably. I guess it depends. Like, it depends on your group, I suppose. I've played games where I've had 12, 13-hour sessions before because we just wanted to keep playing, right? But have you ever experienced where you're in an individual session and you're at a time limit, like you have to quit at a certain time, and you've had kind of problems, or not problems, but it's been difficult to not go over or go under, right? Because if you want to, there's this kind of pull to always find the right place to stop. Do you kind of ignore that pull? Are you lucky that your group can, just guys play and not worry about time? I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that, on individual sessions.
So to an extent, it's kind of the latter. It doesn't matter a whole lot for us for time because we play Saturday nights.
Mm-hmm.
And it's me and Grace. We both work Monday through Friday, so we have nothing going on Sundays. One of our other friends that plays, he works nights and works Sunday through Thursday, so he's off Friday and Saturday night. So Saturday night is actually his, like, he stays up Saturday night to Sunday morning. And then our other friend, our neighbor, they also work Monday through Friday. They do typically go to bed earlier, but we've typically never run into a problem where they're like, okay, I have to go to sleep. And I'm pretty good about what I normally do is if I see it getting close to the time we normally stop, and I see how much we have left, I will pick the most climactic point that I can to be like, you like for the final fight of the dungeon they're in or something. I'll be like, you successfully, pick the lock to get into the next room, and you see, 10 goblins and 5 dire wolves, and that's where we're stopping for tonight.
Gotcha. Yeah, we do the same thing. We try and leave it on a cliffhanger kind of thing. Have you ever gotten to a point where you had to stop in the middle of a combat?
No, typically we've never gotten to that point. Like I said, we all have Sunday off pretty much, so we'll typically always finish out a combat and leave it off at the very least. We'll leave it off at the end of the combat.
Right.
Yeah. I do think too, because you don't stream your game, whereas like we have the time constraint of streaming and time zones because BT is like UK, and then like I'm Pacific Standard Time and Stormy's Central Standard Time, and we're all just kind of like time zones suck. And then he has silly little players like me that never shut up. And then we have one shots that go on for 4 sessions because none of the players will shut up.
See, that's at least better than my one shot. I planned a one shot for Halloween a couple years ago, and I was like, oh, this is it was a level 10 one shot, where they were trying to stop Orcus from opening a portal into the material plane. And I was like, oh, this is a good 4-hour one shot, like it'll be fine. 10 hours later, and I had to cut the one shot in half in order to finish.
Yep.
You're like, well,
I mean, that's exactly what happened to poor Jotun with she and I and Ryan and Balcony. Thank you. I was kept thinking of her character's name, but
Chantrell.
Chantrell. That was supposed to be a one shot, but it ended up being 4 sessions because we couldn't finish it because we just, like you said, we're chatterboxes. Like to plan out clever tactics. So
see, I just planned way too much for him.
It's beautiful.
That's a good point on this topic, right? Sometimes that's a good lesson that you learned, realizing that I can't have this many encounters and pull it off in 4 hours, right?
Yeah.
And that's
and it was also the size of the encounters too, because the final encounter they were fighting a demon that was able to summon another demon, and I think at least one other demon that was also able to summon a copy of himself. And I didn't even bother with like that part of the combat.
Right.
I just completely ignored that ability because there was no way they would get through the combat in time.
Was that 5e or 3.5?
That was 5e.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing.
Learned a lesson there.
Well, and our viewers get to learn stuff from you tonight. So,
Yep.
Yep. Don't plan too much for one shots, and if you plan too much, expect it to be a 4-parter. That's the life lesson.
Yep.
Guys, so we do have a couple already in our back pocket, but this is also the time where we open up the floor for more D&D Q&A questions. So if you have any DM questions or anything, please feel free to throw those into chat. I will snag them. But before you do such things, don't forget to go follow Bite-Size Mike. I've posted only a couple links in chat, only a few, not a big deal. You can't miss it, so all you gotta do is click on one of those links and just hit follow. And if you have an extra couple dollars burning in your pocket, just hit gift 10 subs. Just saying.
yeah, that's only a couple of bucks.
Just a couple extra bucks, no big deal. Bite-Size Mike deserves it, so so with that being said, I'm going to get this first question. Random Cosmic Horror asks, do you prefer XP or milestone, and why for level up?
So I used to really prefer XP when I first started. Because I was very that was when I was first starting, so I was very methodical with everything. I was like, okay, we fought this many things, there's this many players, you get this much XP, we're doing this by the books, that's how I first started. And then my past couple campaigns, it's been much more just fluid, and I just at a certain point when I feel like they're ready for the next level, I'm just like, okay, y'all have leveled up. So I definitely now prefer milestone. It feels more realistic almost, because if you really immerse yourself in the role play, you're not going to wake up one day and just be like, I'm level 3, I get new spells. You're going to over time, you're going to learn new things, and your character's going to learn new things. You're going to have access to new people to teach you new things. If you warlock, your pact is going to grow stronger with your patron over time. Cleric, you're going to, your religious beliefs are going to grow stronger over time. So it's kind of just after a certain amount of time has passed, then you're ready to use those new things you have learned from new people.
Yeah. That's a great answer. And I agree. I want to answer this too, just to be a little bit different. I think that for the most part, I agree. I like milestone better, even though obviously in my past, since I started with the original BX set and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and second edition, blah, 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 most of that was all XP based, right? And so that's what I was used to. Yeah. And of course, all the computer RPGs that I've played over the decades are XP based too, right? But I think I like milestone better. Like you said, it's smoother. It makes more sense. You can tie their level up to something narrative, right? Mm-hmm. And that makes it more special to them than just, I happen to get just enough XP from that one goblin that fell off the rock, but I would say that XP can be good under a different, if you're going for an old school feel for not necessarily a whole campaign. I guess it could be a whole campaign, but if you want to go for an old school D&D survivalist feel, where you get into the minutia of spell components and, how much weight is and, how all those kinds, the environment and the temperature and stuff, then XP can actually be kind of very rewarding, right? Mm-hmm. In that kind of, granular context. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, since I do things narratively, I like milestone. Good?
Yeah. So the first few attempted DM D&D games that we tried, this is when we had like baby DMs with baby players and like, everybody had different expectations of the game and everything. And we sat down for this camp, we sat down and like this was like episode 1, and like we were all introducing our characters and stuff and like, whatever. And then we get through the first session, and then the DM is just like, okay, and starts handing out XP to people. And I'm just kind of like, this feels weird.
Really?
I didn't let, also, like, there was trolley moments, and like, it was like kind of weird, and also kind of not the greatest group of people to be playing with each other. So the idea, for me personally, like that kind of just like soured the XP. And I'm just like, I couldn't even imagine playing D&D now with like XP base, because I'm just like, we should all get exactly the same XP. And this is awful, because it just feels weird. I don't know.
I get what you're saying. Basically, what you're saying is each of you got different amounts of XP, and that felt icky.
Well, yeah, and also because of how the group was structured,
right?
Too. Also, was not made for the best. So, I personally, as a player, much prefer the milestone.
Yeah,
much prefer it. It feels so much better. It feels so much more rewarding to me.
You're fortunate that because there are a lot of people out there who don't play D&D or any RPG anymore because their first experience was like yours, a horror story, right? And then it kind of colored their perspective of it, and they never go back to it, never try it again, right? And that's a shame, because I bet you with a good group and a good DM, they might have been just as addicted to it as, don't get me wrong. I understand that not everybody's going to like every D&D, like everybody's going to like everything, but yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, so I actually had a very similar thing as Drew had happened to me. I had a real like bad experience. One of my first, it's like the first year that I was DMing, because I started out DMing. I didn't start out playing. And I was doing it at my college with, we had a D&D club. And there were 2 separate scenarios where it just kind of like put me off of D&D for a good while. I was basically forced to DM for 16 people. 16 people in person.
Yeah.
It was one of the most awful experiences.
Yeah.
And then the other one, I had a person who I was DMing for just a couple of people. It was like 3 people. And at the time, I was using a digital copy of the monster manual. And he also DM'd, and he had a physical copy, and he was full on arguing with me because my digital copy showed a different DC for a monster's ability than what his showed. And based on my copy, he failed the save. Based on his copy, he passed, and he started a full on argument about it. And those 2 experiences kind of put me off for a little bit, and then I slowly got back into it after that.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
a lot of horror stories out there. I've had quite a few myself, but I won't go into them tonight.
Yeah. I just want to say, though, if you are into D&D, there is a group out there. There are your people. They are out there, guys. Don't give up. Don't give up. Maybe it's not D&D. Maybe it's a different TTRPG and you just haven't found it yet. Keep looking. Don't stop. Don't give up. I believe in you. You will find your people. Okay.
All right.
Sorry, I had to put that out there.
Just now that she's off her rant, Just Grace asks, you please tell us about slug buns.
So he's another one of my interesting NPCs. I don't remember where the idea for him came from, but he is a traveling merchant who rides on a dog sled pulled by goats. And he sells a lot of different things. He's more like a general store. He sells like swords, shields, health potions, just like rope, just general adventuring gear. But he isn't the brightest. He's kind of crazy. And so he doesn't know the actual names for things. He calls every single item in his inventory a sword. So he will be like, do you want to come look at my swords that I sell? This sword is very good for stabbing people. This sword is very good for blocking things. This sword is very good for climbing buildings. He calls everything a sword.
That is amazing.
And then if you try to tell him what the name for something is, he's like, oh, that's a great name for that. I should start calling it that. And one of our players in our current campaign actually told him to call like 3 or 4 items that he had the completely wrong thing. So now he's been going around and calling these items not what they are, but they're also not swords. And they in my last campaign that I was running, Grace actually stole one of his goats, and they fed him magic mushrooms.
That's funny. Poor goat. He had a trip.
Yeah, so that's Slug Buns. His name is Slug Buns Beanie Worthy.
That's a really cute name. I'm just saying.
I love it.
I love that so much.
Mm-hmm.
Sinfra, hi sissy. Sinfra asks, question, what's your favorite moment ever playing D&D? And I'm going to ask this across the table if anybody wants to share.
So my favorite is actually not as a DM. It was from the one session that I played. I was being kind of a butthead, and as a DM myself, I was purposefully trying to like slightly derail this guy's campaign because I knew the ins and outs of the game. So I was just kind of being like just a little bit of a butthead. And we had ended up going down a hatch, and a tower collapsed on top of our hatch. So we were stuck. And we had found a potion, an unknown potion while we were down there. And so I had like done like almost like a wine tasting where you like, swish a little bit around, spit it out to try to sense kind of what the potion was. And the only information I could gather from it was that I felt stronger. So I was like, oh, it's obviously some like potion of strength or something like that, like super cool. So I had the bright idea. I was like, guys, we're stuck in this tower. I'm going to drink this potion because it's obviously a potion of strength or something. And I'm going to try to like bite our way out of this hatch. I was going to try to just like take a chunk out of the hatch and just like rip it off with my mouth. And it was actually a potion of magical weapon. So it turned my mouth into a magic weapon. I managed to bite a chunk off of the hatch, and then a boulder collapsed on top of me. And the other people in our group, they each got on one side of the boulder, and one side they flip-flopped sides of who would fail the save each time. So the boulder was just sitting there rocking back and forth on my body as I was being crushed beneath it.
Did your character survive that?
They did. Luckily, they finally got the boulder off of me, but it was a good 4 or 5 attempts to get that boulder off of me.
That is hilarious. That's a great moment as a player for sure. Wow.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know if I should pick one as a DM or as a player.
As a player.
Okay, she wants it as a player. Okay. Well, then I'm gonna have to think some more, Druid. What's yours?
I have a few, but I think one of my other favorite moments. I talked about one recently, which is when I managed to cast Feeble Mind on Shiny Shoes.
Right.
That one was great. But I think too, when we went to the tower, and it was supposed to be a haunted tower, and we were supposed to be afraid, and the whole time, I'm just gonna be friends with the ghost, you guys. I'm gonna try to be his friend. I'm gonna talk to him and ask him all the questions and try to be his friend and everything, because we're friends now, okay? And refused to just be afraid and just wanted to be friends with the ghost. And like the whole time I could just see Stormy just like...
Yeah, she was incredibly annoying, and I loved it. Every second of it.
It was just like, I do not care. I'm going to be friends with this ghost. Nothing is going to stop me from being friends with this ghost. Which we did become friends with him. We did.
You did. That's true.
Funny.
Although you never got to go back and tell him stories.
You know what?
I'm sorry, I
You
had
don't
to
have
do
to
it.
bring that up.
I had
You
to do
don't have
it.
to
I'm
bring that
sorry.
up. No. My heart is still broken.
I know.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Oh man.
Man, dang it. I needed that third one after all. As a player, man, that's tough. Um,
I just went to go take a sip out of my coffee, and my coffee cup's empty.
poor thing. I so here's the thing. I mean, over the years, it's been very rare that I've been a player, and so it's a hard one for me to answer. It's been so long. So I mean, obviously, currently, like I said, I'm playing with the group that I normally would DM for a 3.5 on Sundays. Um, uh, I'm gonna have to cheat and do the DM one.
Okay, fine.
I would say my it might be tied for first place or at least up there or whatever. But the moment the triple plot twist moment for Druid and Fate and Star Kitty when they finally encountered the dimensional parasite, which was a beholder, and in that moment lots of different things happened, including the fact that the like Star Kitty's little friend Philip, that only she could see, hear, or interact with it all. No magic, no nothing could show it in its existence at all. Like everyone thought she was crazy and talking to herself or an alternate personality or something, right? But because they actually encountered an actual beholder, the psychological kind of barrier
The
was
polyphiliponic persephitude.
exactly was lifted, and so now they could actually see, oh wow, her little best friend is a little tiny beholder that's been floating by her head all this time.
Listen, I love props too, and listen. The day that we got that prop sent out there to Star Katie was also probably just peak.
Yeah, I'd say that's another really good one because when we gave this to her on stream, she started crying. It was awesome.
That's awesome.
We snuck it. We snuck it in. Now every time she's like, "Do you need me to open up this box?"
Oh yeah, that was funny. Yeah, I was setting up the map. I pretended I was setting up the map, and I asked her to grab my box of trees here, right? and so I had taken the trees out and put Philip in there, and she looked at it, and it was awesome. But
So good.
yeah,
So good. Peak right there.
yeah. Although that night too, like I said, the one where you guys got to see Philip, and then also Rylar suddenly did his thing that freaked you guys out, and you
That
didn't
was
know if he was
awful.
going to be an enemy or not. And yeah, it was good.
Honestly, that didn't freak me out as much as when he died, and we got to see the eyeball.
Yeah.
And that I would show off my drawing of the eyeball as much as possible because I'm just like, this is just an eyeball of doom.
I cheated. I know that was my DM moment, but it's tougher for me. If I think of a player win, I'll tell it in the future. All right, Druid, your next one for bite-sized
random.
Mike.
Random Cosmic Horror asks, how do you handle mid-max builds?
So I have a lot of I haven't had anyone really try to min-max anything. I think I did have one that was trying to in my last campaign. But I'm very open and honest with my players, and I lay out, like, when we do our session 0, I lay out like the specific guidelines for my world, because I've built this homebrew world and I don't want certain things in this homebrew world. They just don't make sense. And it would be very hard for me to roleplay that as well as them to roleplay it. And so I think the most min-max thing I have currently in our session is our rogue asked me, because she's playing a halfling and Grace is playing a furbolg. Our rogue asked me if she could use her bonus action to hide behind Grace, because Grace is technically 2 sizes bigger. because she's treated as a large creature because for like carrying capacity and things like that. So I was like, you know what? Honestly, that's hilarious. So go for it.
Yep.
And it's led to some. I've had to up my combats because she gets advantage when she attacks from being hidden, and she's every turn she will peek out, attack, go back to hiding, peek out, attack, go back to hiding. So there's a lot of damage being dealt by her. So I've had to beef up my combats a little bit. But really, it just, for me, it comes down to just like being having open and honest conversations with my players about, like, you know, if you have something out of the ordinary you want to do, just talk to me about it. I'll tell you yes or no if I think that will fit into my world or not. And that's pretty much how I deal with it. Is just obviously it takes having a good group and the right group to be able to talk about that stuff. But I've had no problems with that up to this point. So
I've never really quite understood mid-maxing D&D characters because it's a role-play game, but that's just me. But
like, for me, I don't mind a little bit of min-maxing. Like, I understand, to me, I want your characters to be kind of heroic, so I get that. But if your whole focus is just on all the mechanics, I'm with you. Like session 0, and the first time I play with players, I let them know, hey, we're going to work on your background together. I want your background of your character and your motivations of your character to fit in the world, because I'm going to create my world around you. And so it's more important to me to know what sort of personality they have, what their motivations are. If they have some interesting weakness, all these kinds of things. I would rather my players come up with creative, unique things about their character as a character than, they have this this ability and this strength and this ability combos with this ability, and it's like, it's okay if that stuff happens if you figure out clever things. In fact, I encourage my players to do clever combos together, come up with creative solutions, all those things. I get that, but that should be in game, in session, not like in the I mean, like I said, I don't mind a little bit of min-maxing when you're creating your character. But if that's your whole focus, we're probably not going to be the best fit of player and DM.
I can't even remember half of my features and traits. I'm not even dispels yet with Thera, and I can't even remember half of the things that she's capable of doing. I had to have somebody else go, "Oh, don't you have this feature?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Grace is the same way, because she's playing a barbarian, and when she rages, she's had resistance to damage since we started playing, and she had no clue. Someone had to tell her, and she was like, "Oh, I have that? I had no idea."
Yep. That happens, yep.
It does for sure.
I'm right there with you, Grace.
That actually made me think of a recent moment as a player. So I'll make it quick. But it was in Jotun's campaign. This I wouldn't say it's my favorite one ever, but it's one of my favorites for sure, because it stands out in my mind. We were in Jotun's campaign. It was that fight that we had when we were first, I think, invading the prison. I thought it was really fun the way we started that fight against the enemies. And I had a couple of clever things that I did. Like, I slept an imp while it was flying high above. And then there was another imp that I had slept, because their hit points were low enough that I could sleep both of them. And one of them slept right there on the like the cliff edge, and the other one was flying. So the one that was flying fell to its death. And then on the next round, I used Thunderwave to push the other one off because it was asleep.
Yeah,
that was a cool moment. Anyway,
that was good.
Awesome.
You get the next one, right?
No, you do.
I do? Oh, okay. Random Cosmic Horror has another awesome question here. Yes. Do you want a magic British owlbear? I think he's trying to get you to adopt him.
Maybe. We'll have to talk if it's the right price.
Great answer.
That means you just gotta listen. Random Cosmic Horror. That means that you just gotta go follow him and do all the things that I've said before. So.
Hi, Captain Jim.
Captain Jim Rainer's been fucking saying some bangers in chat today. It's been hilarious.
Yeah.
Captain Jim Rainer, shout out to him, asks, do you ever feel there's a common misconception about D&D players that is easily proven to not be true, yet still continues to be a common myth itself?
I mean,
Yeah, I
the only
got
one
one, but I'm going to wait
think
for Mike first. Go ahead.
the only one I can think of off the top of my head is, I don't know how prevalent it is nowadays, but at least in years past, the kind of stereotype that D&D players are, big, sweaty, smelly guys that, get together in a basement and eat a bunch of like Cheetos and Doritos and stuff. And I really feel like, like I said, I don't know how common that stereotype is now, but I feel like D&D has definitely grown outside of the stereotypical community it used to be a part of. And now there's a lot more people playing it from a lot more different walks of life playing the game.
Yeah.
That's true. In fact, I was thinking about that. The first thing that came to mind was that, not necessarily a misconception, but I mean, that it used to not be that much of a misconception a long time ago.
Yeah.
But nowadays it definitely is. And the one that came to mind immediately for me was that there's sort of a misconception amongst some people who don't get it and don't play D&D that all D&D players are smart. And I would say,
which is not the case.
For the most part, that's true, but that's not always true.
I mean, I play D&D and I am not smart.
That is not true at all. You are very smart. You got to give yourself more credit for that. I'm gonna don't pick on my friend like that.
Dare you use my words against me?
Mm-hmm.
It's my favorite thing to say to people. How dare you insult my friend like that? And people are just like, what? I mean, yeah, I can't really think of anything besides like nobody are like, there's gonna be some players that worship demons, but not everybody does. Okay.
Oh yeah, that's definitely an old that's an old one, but there's still a lot of religious people who think that that's true.
Yeah. So there might be demon worship in game. Does not mean they worship demons in real life. Just saying.
There may even be people out there playing D&D and worshiping the devil at the same time. That doesn't mean we all do it.
Yeah.
All right. Sinfra asks, question for all. What class did you attach to more? And what is the history of that reasoning? And I totally just stole this question from you, Story. So you get 2 next. So
that's okay. Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
So mine's at least half of that is a very easy answer. Which actually lets me show off something else. I have been a huge fan of rogues and thieves for as long as I can remember. I don't know exactly what gravitated me towards them, but I really like the deceptive, sneaky, the sneak attacks, all of that stuff. It's been like every game where I have the option, I have not played anything but a rogue or a thief. If I have the option to, I will. And I don't have my other bottle of this right now. But do y'all know Matthew Lillard?
Yeah. Fantastic actor. She doesn't know movies or TV or
don't ask me. I don't know
anything normal people do.
He plays Shaggy in Scooby-Doo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
the live action Scooby-Doo?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I'm caught up.
I don't know if y'all know, but he is super into Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh wow, that's cool. That doesn't surprise me, but I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he started making a whiskey line based around Dungeons and Dragons. So I actually have a bottle here. It's called Quests End Whiskey. This is the Warlock. I have a Rogue bottle. I just don't have it with me right now. But I bought Rogue first. And each one that you buy, so far he's made Paladin, Rogue, and Warlock, and each one came with a book. It is a little novel about the character. So this actually goes through like the warlock story of like how he's joining with the others, and it has their character sheet. Like,
That's wild.
it's
That's amazing.
so cool. And what I'm thinking is they are leading up to building an adventuring party to slay a dragon, because the next bottle they're releasing is called Dragon. And apparently they're launching a second party at some point next year. They're going to do a second line. And this is some of the best whiskey I've had. And it also has a map on the back. I don't know what the map is of, but it has like an embossed map on the back. And the side has an HP meter.
That's cool.
So it's just super cool. They only made 7,000 bottles. And each bottle costs $150.
Don't open it. It'll be a collector's item one day.
Yeah. But it's one of my most favorite things. And when I saw that Rogue, I missed Paladin. When I saw Rogue was coming out, I was like, I have to get this. I don't care how much it costs. I play a Rogue in everything that I play. I have to get this bottle. And so it was just one of the coolest things. And finding out that he is a huge Dungeons and Dragons fan, it's just so cool.
I love it.
Right
I love
on.
that so much.
Right on.
What about you, Stormy?
What? Oh,
What class did you attach to more?
I mean, I think I've
reasoning?
answered this before, but you know, the old school paladins, not old school in the old misconception about. There's a misconception about D&D that all paladins are these. The misconception is that paladins are always going to be these staunch kind of it's my way or the highway, and you know, this just very unfun kind of people. To me, there's lots of different ways to make someone lawful good and be a champion of justice or light or whatever. At any rate, paladins I like because when I got into D&D, I always loved like King Arthur legends and stuff. And the first books that I saw had like knights fighting dragons on there, and so the quintessential knight is the paladin, and so that's why I'm kind of drawn to them. Yeah.
This is gonna shock people, but I really love the warrior classes so much. I really do. Like, I love playing Thera as the Rune Knight fighter going into paladin. Like, I really love that. We did like a short little stint playing a Curse of Strahd campaign, Fate and I, with a couple of people that we knew, and I was playing an Echo Knight fighter, and it was so much fun. It was such a fun, and I really enjoy like in your face, hard hitting, run up into the group, like I love it, and I really like that combination of like heavy armor with like maybe a sword and like destruction magic. Like, I love that like kind of combo. So fighters, I really, really like fighter. And though of course everybody would assume druid, but I hated managing spell slots so much. I hated managing spells so much. And here I am now going into Paladin where I have to manage spells again, but they're not spell slots, they're smite slots. Okay? So.
Oh wow, this is an interesting question from Captain Jim Raynor. He asks, Bite-Size Mike, if you didn't know Stormy and Druid, if you didn't know us, what D&D classes would you put them in? Just, I guess, based upon looks.
I mean, just based upon like first time, if I had met y'all for the first time and y'all asked me what D&D class I would put y'all in, Druid would obviously be a Druid. That's just the most obvious one.
Yeah.
And then Stormy, honestly, I would say probably either Cleric or Paladin.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I figured the look would kind of screams wizard or maybe even rogue, but I appreciate that. Right on.
Yeah, it's the long hair and the color just kind of makes me think of like a religious like warrior that's been doing this for like, you know, a long time and is, you know, like that's kind of what I picture.
Oh wow. Thank you. I take that as a compliment. I mean, very cool.
Definitely.
So you said I get the next one, Druid, because
Correct. Because I stole 2 in a row.
yeah, that's all right. Captain Jen asks another great question. Do you feel games with D&D aspects will help bring a resurgence to the D&D community in terms of influx of new players? I think, for example, Baldur's Gate 3.
I definitely think so.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you didn't know Dungeons and Dragons before, there are so many people that played BG3 for the first time, never having played Dungeons and Dragons before, and the majority of them, like I heard, because I'm on TikTok all the time, I saw so many people like, they started out the game, they were like, "Oh, this is stupid, I hate this," and then they kept playing it just a little while longer, and then they were like, "Oh, this is the most amazing game ever. This deserves Game of the Year." And like people that had never played Dungeons and Dragons before, and I really think because of how games like BG3 are laid out, I think it's a great segue into playing Dungeons and Dragons because you have the turn-based combat. Some of the classes are similar and have similar abilities and stuff. Obviously, some stuff is different from BG3 to D&D,
Mhm.
but there's enough similarities that it's a good it's a good segue and a good intro to this is what D&D is like. And I really feel like it could bring in a lot of new players, provided there's enough people willing to DM for those players.
Oh, without a doubt. In fact, I'm gonna go one step further. I agree with you 100% and take it a step further. I think BG3 saved Wizards of the Coast reputation because if you guys remember, right, like a few, I think it was a few, I don't remember the time frame exactly, but pretty close to like 6 months to a year or 8 months, whatever, I forget. But before BG3 came out, there was that big stink because Wizards was getting ready to basically ruin Dungeons and Dragons with draconian, with the draconian new rule set and undo the open open 20 stuff.
License.
Our first Bandwidth and Banter.
I was gonna say our very first Bandwidth and Banter was that, yeah.
And and the funny thing is, literally the month that was in January, and the month before that in December, Wizard of the Coast had released Magic the Gathering 30th edition or 30 years, whatever. It was a special set. And that too was a marketing fiasco because they were basically selling packs that were copies of the old school alpha and beta packs, right? With alpha and beta cards in there, right? But they weren't legal to use in any format. Yet they were selling them for like, I forget, it was like $500 or something, or it was a ridiculous amount of money.
Crazy like that. Yeah.
And so oh my God, their reputation tanked. But they did backtrack. They couldn't fix Magic 30, but they did backtrack on the D&D stuff. And then BG3 came out, I think probably 8 months, 9 months, a year later. And I think it's truly rebuilt their reputation, ironically, because they haven't actually done anything different. But BG3 has pulled in a lot of people, people just that it wouldn't have and I find it hilarious because the turn-based tactical combat top-down perspective style RPGs, CRPGs, I've been playing those for decades. And they were never popular. They were always the nerdiest kind of game that very few people play. And now look at BG3, what it's done. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
And amazing. BG3 is embracing the modding community, which I personally, as somebody who is obsessively modding my games all the time, I love how Larian Studios is just like, modders, here you go. Please mod the game. Do the things. We'll make it easier for you. And I'm just like, oh, love you.
My next run will probably be a modded run. It's going to be a modded evil playthrough where we're going to go through, and aside from traitors, some traitors may inadvertently die, but we're going to murder every single NPC throughout the entire game, minus traitors that we can keep alive.
Amazing.
Amazing. Be a truly evil playthrough.
Well, one day I'll beat it. I keep starting and stopping. So
Yeah.
it's fine though. I'll get there. I'll
You'll get
eventually
there.
beat the game.
I still haven't beaten it yet either. We're still working on our longest playthrough.
Beat Banana Tom and I finally got a little bit farther again today. We're getting close to the end. So I mean, we're in Act 3, and I really like. Wow, I really like where we're at, and hopefully we can continue playing and finish it. I mean, our plan is to finish it. It's just poor BT's back. Throws us off sometimes, or also my long COVID threw us off a few times in the last few months. So bite-sized Mike. If you had to sum up your DM style in a sentence or two, what would you say?
Oh man. I would have to say roughly expect nothing less than random chaos.
I love that so much. I was just thinking, like, how would I explain myself as a player? I never shuts up and will always insist on talking.
I don't know. That's not necessarily true about Thera. She's super quiet.
She's quiet. But I also have to go to be able to cope with not interrupting every 5 minutes like I did with Fern. So, I have to be good. That's why I challenged myself to play a more stoic, serious character. I needed to flex those muscles,
Yep.
That is true, right, Razmataz. Quiet characters are harder to play sometimes. A bit more of a challenge.
And I needed the challenge. I needed it.
If you say so. As long as you're having fun.
I am having a lot of fun.
That is probably the way I would sum up my DMage is as long as my players are having fun.
And I'm having a ton of fun.
Mm-hmm. Well,
yeah.
Guys, go check out Bite-Sized Mike's amazing content on Twitch. Help support him. Give him all the biddies and all the subs. Make sure you follow him. So last thing before we start to wrap up, do you think you'll ever potentially do a campaign on stream?
I don't know. I started to do one on stream, and then the group just didn't work out. They had a problem with me needing to cancel streams sometimes. So it just didn't work out. I think it's something I would want to do eventually. I just don't know when I would have the time right now. Because I've got 8 million other games that I want to play.
I understand. I do. I get you.
It's something I'm definitely open to.
Right on. Plus, you also spend a lot of time on details for your D&D stuff, so it would eat you up a lot of your free time for sure. I get that.
Yeah. It for sure would.
Got to get some streamers on there. All streamers understand needed to cancel.
2 of them were streamers.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
one of the times I canceled was because we were in an active tornado warning.
Well, yeah, that's kind of important. Yeah.
Yeah, and then shortly after that, they all just kind of dropped from the group and said that they couldn't deal with the inconsistency. So I was like, all right, fine.
Wow, that's a bummer. It's the way it goes sometimes. It
is.
Not all groups work out.
But
I am happy that you got to share with us, all more about you as a DM and as a player. And I am grateful, even if I'm not in it, I'm grateful that you're out there crafting amazing experiences for the people that you care about.
Exactly. Yeah. It doesn't always have to be streamed. Yes. That's selfish of us to just ask for it.
Just if I could stream my in-person sessions, I probably would.
I get it. Well, with that, do you have anything else that you want to add before we wrap up Bite-Sized Mike?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you. It's been an honor and a treat and a pleasure as always, brother.
So good.
Of course.
Oh, love that guy.
Can't believe
Love
the
that
time
guy.
it flew by so fast.
So fast. Every time.
I know. Man, Mike is amazing.
I know.
I want to
I know.
play in one of his sessions. Dang it. Not just a session, but like, like a mini campaign or a whole campaign, but we don't have enough time.
I know.
And he doesn't have
Stupid
enough time.
time.
Maybe someday. You never know. Regardless,
never
like I
know.
said, still serious about what I said, he's out there making awesome content, being a creative being. And I think that's important for all of us in some way or
Absolutely.
another. Not always the same way, but as long as you're being creative. So
Exactly.
Speaking of creative, super excited. He's actually in chat tonight. The person that we're having on next is literally next Thursday.
Literally next Thursday,
Fantastic.
October 3rd.
Another creative genius is Razmataz. He's going to be on Legacy of Loremasters, B&B. He too has also been in regular Bandwidth and Banter. We're going to get to dive into his DM style. And what's unique about him is his primary TTRPG is Cyberpunk, which he streams. So that will be a real treat. We've had mostly mostly Dungeons and Dragons folks, although who was it that we had recently?
It is Depayne.
Yeah, it is Depayne, but he wasn't on LOL yet. That was on regular B&B. But he's doing a Call of Cthulhu, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So, yeah. Maybe in the future we can get him on. So that would be awesome.
Yeah, just so many amazing people out there.
Yeah.
Just so good.
Can't wait for you guys to get to know more about Razmataz's style. Thank you so much. Hey, anything else to add there, Druid?
I love you guys.
Oh, he actually plays more D&D than Cyberpunk. Oh, okay. Well, we'll get to know more about that. No spoilers.
We'll talk about it. We'll get there next week, Razmataz.
All right. You ready to wrap this up, Druid?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you for coming to the show.
Please drop a like, subscribe, and comment down below.
If you're listening to the podcast,
please rate and review the episode.
We are Bandwidth
and Banter.
Thank you.
And good night. Goodbye. Goodbye, guys.